Hi, I'm Lynette and welcome. Today I am going to be going through my eyeshadow palette basket of shame. Now, if you don't know what a basket of shame is, well, it is a basket full of makeup, in this case eyeshadow palettes, that I bought maybe weeks ago, maybe months ago, maybe a year or more or so ago, and I still haven't used them. So today I'm going to be going through the eyeshadow palettes I did actually use, because I'm trying to work my way through the basket of shame, and I'm going to show you some looks that I did using each palette. If I have some to show you, I will post them up there, and then I'm also going to be sharing my thoughts on each eyeshadow palette, because I do have some. If you like these types of videos, then please consider subscribing, because I'm here every Saturday with makeup hauls, swatches, tutorials, and reviews. So let's get through this basket. Okay, so I started off with 22 palettes in my basket of shame. And I've been making it a point this year to go through the basket and try to use these palettes, because there's nothing worse than buying new beautiful eyeshadow palettes and never using them. That's not what I bought them for. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this basket here. Now these are just the ones that I've used, and then we'll talk about where I am in terms of my count when we're done. So let me start off with palettes that I've purchased from the Glam Shop. Now I actually have 4 palettes, and I made my way through 3, so I'm proud of that. I don't know about you, but I'm proud of that. And my plan, you know, I've always wanted to try Glam Shop. People love them so much. And so my plan was to do a full review after I had used each palette. And that didn't happen. And I'll tell you why. So I think the very first one I used was the Citronata palette. And it's a really pretty yellow palette. I'm a sucker for yellow shadows. I'm always trying to find yellow shades that are going to show up vibrant on my skin tone. And I mean, yeah, in terms of color, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't too great either. Like, so this matte shade here just really didn't do much of anything. The shadows are soft, and I didn't really enjoy using them. Now the shimmers were nice. But the mattes left much to be desired. So okay, I tried the yellow palette, and you know, again, I haven't had a lot of success with yellow eyeshadows, so going in I wasn't expecting a whole lot, and I didn't get a whole lot. So now we move on to the Moro palette, or the Camo palette. I don't know what it's called. I heard people call it Camo. It says Moro, so I call it the Moro palette. I even wrote notes on this because, like I said, I was planning to do in-depth reviews of all the palettes. So this is the Moro palette, and I mean, you can see right away if you've been here before why I loved it. So I wanted to buy it. Very grungy, dark grungy color story with greens. Oh, I love me a green eyeshadow, but you know that already too. Now, the issue with this palette is, once again, the mattes. These mattes are really soft, super powdery. You get so much kick up in the pan, and you know, I don't mind a little kick up. It's fine. This, way too much. Like, I don't know if you can see the dents in this, but I think I've used this palette twice, and it looks like this is one of my favorite palettes, because as soon as you put your brush in, powder gets disturbed everywhere, and it's no fun. Now the shimmers, so I start at the greens. Let's go with the colors, the shades. Really pretty different greens in here, but once I put them on my eye and blended them out, they all look like one color, just the same color. They all look the same. I didn't really see any differentiation between any of the greens in the palette. And then on the lower lash line, they darkened up, so I put them on my eye and they would appear darker once I put them on my skin than they are in the pan. And then on the lower lash line, I couldn't even blend on the lower lash line. I just had to tap the color on, because once I started blending, it just blended, the pigmentation just blended away. So starting off with this palette, I was kind of pissed off actually. But then I got to the shimmers, and the shimmers was like, okay, all right, well, at least I saved this look. The shimmers are what saved this palette for me. Now you have a lot of different textures. There's a duochrome in here. Then you've got these two shades that are really flaky and sparkly, and I know that they don't put glitter in their pans, but whatever it is, you know, you're gonna get it on your face. And yeah, so the glitters for me, the shimmers in this palette saved it for me. Like I said, I think I used it twice. I think I did the same look both times. But I'm not crazy about these flaky shades because it's just too much mess. And I find that when I'm getting ready to do a look, I usually tend to swatch the shadows so I know what it is I want to do. And the glitter and the flakes in some of these metallics are so much so that it's just a big sparkly mess all over my hand, my fingers, my face, and for days on end I have glitter, and it's just to the point where I just didn't want to use it, because even though the shimmers and metallics are pretty, it's like, do I want the mess? So yeah, again, I think I did 2 looks with this palette. I liked both looks, but the process of creating the looks, I do not enjoy. And then last but not least is the Zlone palette. And again, like when you see this color story, just, I know, another green palette. Yeah, but so gorgeous. And this palette I find is a little better than the other 2. The mattes in here, powdery, but not as powdery, so not as messy. And this beautiful like lime green yellow, gorgeous in the pan, does nothing once applied to my skin. And again, this is a palette, I mean, the mattes worked fine. But again, this is a palette where the shimmers are what's like, you know, I started off with it and I'm like, okay, I start with the mattes, I'm like, all right, it's fine. But then I use the shimmers and I put those on the lid and it's like, okay, this is beautiful. So once again, I think of the 3, this one is my favorite, not just in color story, but also in formula. So yeah, this one I like the most, but I could definitely see myself depotting all the shimmers out of these palettes. I'm lazy, so I'm probably never going to do that. But I could see myself depotting all of the metallic shades out of these and then just throwing the rest away. And as I said, I bought 4 of these palettes, so I still have 1 to use, which I'm going to force myself to use. Because at this point, that's kind of how I feel, like I have to force myself. But if you buy these palettes, I think you are definitely buying them for the metallics, not for the mattes. And I'm glad I did go on ahead and try Glam Shop, because I was very curious. But now that I have, I think I'm good. I think I'm good in terms of my Glam Shop collection. So that's those. And then from BH Cosmetics, I did pick up the Sugar Cone palette from TJ Maxx. I actually picked up 3 palettes altogether. Yeah, 3 palettes altogether from this collection. I found them at TJ Maxx, and I already have two that I love. So I went on ahead, and this one is the neutral palette. And honestly, I have all these shades already. I just thought the palette was really pretty, but I have all these already. But the formula is consistent with the 2 I already owned. Really pretty formula. The mattes blend nicely. For me, I really need to have a deeper matte to do a full look that I like to do. So for me, I would use this palette with another shadow or another palette with a deeper matte shade in it, brown shade in it. The shimmers are really beautiful, soft, smooth, impactful, but you know, just nothing special in terms of my collection. But that has nothing to do with the palette, that's me. But yeah, did use it, did enjoy using it, and yeah. On to Colourpop. I picked up the Sprinkle a Little Magic palette some time ago and used it finally. I did one look with it, and I did a look, you know, when I buy palettes, for the most part, I like to try to do a full look using just the palette, especially when I do eyeshadow tutorials. I don't think I did a tutorial with this one, but I did use it as a standalone palette. It's got this beautiful deep green in it, and then these beautiful shimmers, lime greens. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just a really beautiful color story. And because I decided to use it as a standalone palette, it forced me to do a look that I wouldn't normally have done with these colors, like these mauves and these pinks. And this shade right here was, I don't know, it looks very mauve-y, but then when you swatch it, it's really quite brown, and then it has like flakes of other colors in it. It just kind of threw me off. I don't know what I was expecting when I used it, but I liked the look that I came up with. And yeah, I enjoyed the Colourpop formula. I always have, I still do, and I'm happy that I purchased this palette and finally used it. And then what do we have next? From Ace Beauté, I'm pretty sure I talked about this. I may have talked about I know I talked about a couple of these palettes in other videos, but Ace Beauté, the Tropical Vibes palette, was out of stock forever. And then when it finally got back into stock, I ran and grabbed it at full price, which is something I don't usually do. But this color story, I just, come on now. So now I did not do a tutorial with this. I did a look with it. And I only used the mattes, so it was an all matte look. And I'm happy to report that I didn't have any issues with this formula. I didn't have any issues with the old formula. This is their new formula. But this one just applied really, really nicely. These mattes definitely feel smoother and softer than the old formula, which felt more dry and gritty. But yeah, it went on really nicely. It did crease very, very quickly. So I'm not sure if that's the formula or if that's just how mattes, you know, because I have oily eyelids, and I find that when I do an all matte look, I do have problems with creasing. So yeah, so I don't know if, I'm sure part of it was the formula because it's so soft and smooth, and the other part was my oils. But yeah, I like it. I need to get back to it so that I can try out the shimmer formula and see if that's any different from the old formula. But yes, very happy to have this palette, and really, you know, once I get through my basket, I want to come back to this one. And then, whew, Lord, I've used a lot, but I'm happy to say. So then, I'll talk very briefly about two other palettes. Last year, the indie brand that I discovered and fell in love with was Blend Bunny. And this year, it's Sugar Drizzle polish. Now, I'm not new to the brand. I did start off using their multi-chrome eyeliners, which I like. This was the first time, this year was the first time I purchased an eyeshadow palette from them, and I'm really enjoying it. So this is the Pickle palette, a little cute 6-pan palette. I used the mattes. I used both. Did I use both of the mattes? I think I did. I know I definitely used that one. And then I used, actually, did I do 2 looks with this palette? No, I only did one. I have to come back and do another look with this palette. But Did I do 2 looks with this palette? No, I think I did 1. But I loved the shimmer formula in this palette so much so that I went on and bought another one. It's just so shiny and sparkly and easy to apply and so impactful, but there's not a whole lot of mess like fallout on your face or anything like that. Unlike the Glam Shop palettes, these were a joy to work with and to swatch, and yeah, so I look forward to getting back into this palette and using more of the shadows. And then because I loved working with that so much, I did go ahead and get the Dragonfly Warrior palette. I did 2 looks with this palette. I used the green shimmers, I used the blue shimmers, and the purple duochrome. There's 2 duochromes in here, 3 duochromes in here. And yeah, it's just, I love that there's a black. So I love the color story, but more than that, I love the formula. Just gorgeous. The metallic formula in these palettes is so good. The mattes are fine too, but the metallics, that's what you're buying these palettes for. Gorgeous. So yeah, definitely checking for Sugar Drizzle going forward. Checking for their new eyeshadow palette releases, because I freaking love these. And then Adept Cosmetics. I did pick up the Amunet Nü palette this year. I have a couple of other Adept palettes, and this one was on sale. That's the only reason I purchased it, and it's beautiful. I did a look with it that I did enjoy. I think I used that shade right there, or was it that shade? One of these two, or was it that one? I will post a look. And yeah, I used the mattes for the first time ever, because I have another palette that has mattes in it and I never used the mattes in it. But I used these mattes and they were fine. You know, they're like, you know, they're fine. They'll do. I would prefer that there was another deeper matte shade in here, because I really like to deepen up my outer corner when I do my looks. And this brown for me, you know, and this blue, it would have been nice to have a deeper shade, but let's face it, I'm really not going into this palette for the mattes. I'm going into it for the shimmers, and these are beautiful, smooth, silky, easy to apply, really gorgeous. So glad I finally used that. And then from Martine Cosmetics, this is a new brand to me. I believe they're in Belgium, and I first heard about this brand from Nikki Raven. But then it was Dion Loves Makeup that she kept using this palette. And so finally I was like, well, damn, I gotta get it. And this is what it looks like. This is the 669 palette. I did Google 669, and it's nothing demonic, if you were concerned, because I was. So I forget what it signifies, but it's nothing demonic or evil. So that's this palette. I mean, look at the elaborate packaging, just beautiful, very like medieval. And then it has this very goth and gothic, and it has this latch on it, and then you open it, and then there's this beautiful grungy dark color story. Now I did 2 looks with this palette. I think the first time I used this shade. There are 3 duochromes in this palette. This one, and this one. This one is more of a topper shade, which I'm not crazy about topper shades, but I mean, it is a transformative shade. I did put it over this shade the first time I used it, or was it this one? Anyway, I put it over one of these eyeshadows, and it did transform it, and it was really pretty. And yeah, I did 2 looks with the palette, and the formula is nice. The mattes are nice. You get a little kick up, but not too much. And the metallics are impactful, but a nice soft shimmer, you know, nothing like I'm wearing today. But soft, but still nice, still shimmery, and easy to work with. I love a palette with a formula that's easy to work with, and this was easy to work with. The mattes are pigmented and they blend nicely, and yeah, no issues with the performance of these shadows. My issue though with this palette, now I know I'm not gonna get any light and airy looks with this palette, okay, because it's not that kind of color story. I get it. It's gonna be smoky, it's gonna be dark, it's gonna be grungy, But with that said, there are 3 mattes in this palette. There are 3 mattes. This one is a matte, but it's got sparkle in it, which, why do brands do that? And then these 2 blacks. And these 2 blacks, there's really no difference between the 2. One is a little deeper than the other, but just only slightly so. And then you have a brown, you have this dark brown, you have a teal, and then you have this berry shade. And for me, the problem with this color story or with this setup is that, as I said, I really like to deepen the outer corner, the outer V area when I do my eyeshadow looks. And I found that the only way I could do that with this palette is with the blacks. So I did 2 looks with it. And I want to say I felt compelled to dip into the black each time, because this was just not, these 2 shades here were just not giving me the depth that I needed. And I don't think I used the brown, or did I? I will post the looks. And this one is deep, and I can build it up, I'm sure, to be deep, but I would really prefer to have some different choices when it comes to the deep matte shades. So they could have removed this one here with the sparkle, gotten rid of that, gotten rid of one of these blacks and black mattes, and then this shade right here, this shade right here looks very light, looks like a gray plum. But once I put it on my eye and blended it out, it was a lot darker than what it appears in the pan, which was disappointing, because it would be nice to have some shades to kind of lighten up the look a little bit, you know. But that didn't happen. And then you have this deeper gray here, which I did not use, or did I? I don't remember. But yeah, there's not enough diversity in this palette for me. I think they could have replaced this matte with a really deep green. That would have been nice to use with the greens that are in these grungy greens that are in here. They could have replaced one of these black mattes with a deep, like, eggplant purple or eggplant plum, which would have been gorgeous. So yeah, after I did the first look, I really struggled. I really had to force myself to use this palette again, because I knew the options were going to be limited if I was using it just as a standalone palette. So I do like this. I'm glad I tried Martine Cosmetics, and the formula, now that it's available at Beauty Bay, which is where I got mine. It took forever and a day for it to get here though, and I did get it for 20% off at Beauty Bay. So now that they're at Beauty Bay, and I have had an opportunity to try them and find that I do like the formula, and the color story is just really different. You're just not going to see this color story. You don't see this color story much anywhere. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on Martine Cosmetics from here on out, because yeah, I like this. I like this. And then so I said last year Blend Bunny was the indie brand that I was checking for, and then this year it is Sugar Drizzle, and now I've stumbled across another one indie brand that I want to keep an eye on, and it is Pink Crush Cosmetics. Now, I learned of Pink Crush on Instagram, but what made me go ahead and buy the palettes, Personal Beauty Lab, Jordy, she showed some of these on her channel, and I paused the video and I went to the website to check it out. And I went and I bought 2. So the first one I picked up was the Hyper Chrome palette, and it's just an all shimmer palette. I think it's all duochrome. I think they're all duochromes. Yeah, I think it's an all duochrome palette. And actually, I am using, this is the palette that I did use on my eyes today. I did use one of the shades from it, this one right here, Ecocentric, which is one I don't think I have in my collection prior to purchasing this palette, and that's what I have here on the lid. Look at the shimmer, look at the shine. And not a lot of fallout. I did use it with a damp brush. Yeah, and just really beautiful. There's a couple of different textures in here. Some of them are a lot more gritty and textured, and others are more smooth, but just gorgeous. Okay, gorgeous. I love duochromes. I love multichromes, but I love duochromes too. And the fact that this is an all duochrome palette, I could not resist. And I'm so glad I picked it up, because it's absolutely gorgeous. And then I went back because I should have bought these two together at the same time, but I didn't. So I went back and I purchased the Phenomena palette. And this one I did do a eyeshadow tutorial with, so I will link it up above. And I'll also show you the look that I did with it. And yeah, so this one has 10 duochromes in it and 2 metallics, and just beautiful, just as beautiful, just as beautiful. I did use this one here. No, I used this one here in my inner corner today. And yeah, again, formula is really nice, not a lot of mess or fallout. I did use a damp brush. I didn't use a damp brush with this one today, and I didn't get a whole bunch of fallout or anything. And yeah, really, really nice. I just want to use every shade in both of these palettes. In both of them, I want to go back and I want to make my way through every single shade in each one of these palettes. You can use, I think it's Radar 10 is a discount code you can use to get some money off on these palettes. And the shipping was pretty quick. I didn't have to wait a long time to get them. And yeah, I'm so happy. So this is another indie brand that I will be keeping an eye out for this year. Now, they have a lot of metallic duochrome palettes on their website, and I don't know if I'm going to be picking up a bunch more of duochrome metallic palettes. You know, I feel like I have a lot now in my collection, but I'm definitely still going to be keeping an eye out to see what more they do. So yeah, really, really like that. And then I want to mention an honorable mention. It's not a palette that I purchased. It was a palette that was gifted to me. A friend gave it to me just recently, and I already used it. Go me. And it's from Nomad Cosmetics. It is the America's Parks palette. I just did a look with that, with this. And so Nomad is another indie brand that I've been wanting to try, but never pulled the trigger because A, I don't need any more eyeshadow palettes, and B, because I felt like, you know, I don't know, I feel like I have all of these shades already. I know I got every shade because I got so many. I can say that about every eyeshadow palette. And I think another thing too that has stopped me is because their color stories are gorgeous. They always hit it out the park with the theme, with the packaging, with the color story, just beautiful. But I think, especially in the last maybe couple of releases, because I've been trying to find something to buy that I want so I could try the formula. I think what has stopped me is that they don't have enough deep matte shades in their palettes for me to use them as a standalone palette. And I feel like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 15 pan eyeshadow palette, and I feel like for me and the kind of looks that I like to do, I would have to dip into another palette or some singles in order to do a full look, even with all these shades, because these mattes are just not deep enough for me to do looks the kind of looks that I like to do. But the mattes are nice. They're nice. They blend nicely. They're soft. Not a whole lot. You do get some kick up, but not too much. I know I'm late to the party on Nomad. I know. And the metallics are really pretty, really soft, really smooth, easy to apply. Use the damp brush, and yeah, just easy to work. Again, nice and easy to work with, and did a look that I really, really liked. So this would be a palette I definitely want to use again, but I would definitely have to pair it with something else in order to get the deep mattes that I like. But yeah, glad I finally, thanks friend, you know who you are. Glad I finally got to try Nomad's formula, and you know, now I might pick up another one. I know I don't need any more, but I think I can see another palette in my future. Okay, so I started off with 22 eyeshadow palettes in my basket of shame, and I went through, including my honorable mention, I have used 13 16. So, guess how many palettes I have left? 20. Because I keep buying palettes. I am buying them faster than I can use them. And if you noticed, all except, I don't know, is Colourpop still considered indie? Because they're so big and they've taken over the world. I believe every single, okay, BH Cosmetics is the only one, only mainstream, and they're no longer in business, palette that I purchased and have used. Everything else were from indie brands. And yeah, I have really been checking for the indie brands. Their color stories, their formulas they just speak to me. The prices aren't the greatest. I mean, you know, but they're just what I find the most interesting of late. I don't see that changing anytime soon, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, so out of 22 palettes, I used 13 and I still have 20 to go. But I'm happy. I'm happy that I used 13. I can't even believe it. I want to get to where I can use a palette more than once, right? Yeah. So let me know in the comments, do you have a basket of shame? And if so, what's in it? And are you going through yours? Are you making a commitment to go and use the makeup in your basket of shame? Let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, then please give it a like and consider subscribing. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.